I grew up very isolated, very depressed, very anxious. It was kind of like a catch-22 because the isolation and loneliness was a cause of the depression and anxiety, but it was also a symptom of it. So I was kind of stuck in this cycle and I didn't really know how to get out of it. And in school I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't really talk to anybody. And back at home, my family wasn't really the type of family that would talk about our issues. We were kind of the type of family that we were taught to deal with things on our own. So I never really grew up with a support system where I could communicate my feelings with. And because I craved that so bad, I think I grew up with this belief that I was broken and I needed to somehow fix myself. So at the age of 13, I got on antidepressants. And at the time, I wasn't seeking any additional help. In high school, I was seeing a therapist, but I only saw her for like 4 sessions. But the relationship wasn't very beneficial to me, so I stopped seeing her. And the time I was on antidepressants, life was getting better. I made a group of friends, I was in a relationship, and I thought I was happy, but looking back, there was always something underneath the surface that was bothering me. But I didn't realize that, so I actually decided to get off antidepressants. So transitioning into college was a rough transition. I was coming off antidepressants and I was experiencing a lot of intense emotions, way more intense than I had ever remembered experiencing. I remember starting out, I wouldn't leave my room, I wouldn't talk to my roommate, I slept and cried all the time, and I just had this general feeling of fear always hanging over me. And I guess because of this, I started to use substances as a way to cope with them. And I mostly used alcohol. And alcohol was it was also my liquid courage, the way that I could get that confidence boost to build relationships with people. But what ended up happening was the more I would drink, the more my tolerance increased. And the amount that I was consuming at one point started to take a toll on my body. And so I started to get really sick, and I was spending a lot of time in health services. And one of the patient advocates there, Jill Hendricks, she kind of saw what was going on even before I could even see. So she actually referred me to a substance abuse counselor in the counseling department. Her name is Maggie Tennant. So I started seeing Maggie May of 2011. And in the beginning, it was a lot like pulling teeth with me, trying to get me to communicate and talk about my issues. Even to this day, it can be like that sometimes. But I think what ended up happening was that I wasn't used to having a relationship like this with anybody. So when I started seeing her, she was understanding and accepting and caring. And it was so foreign to me that I didn't know how to react to it. So for the longest, I resisted treatment, and we slowly had to build trust. And for a while, I was kind of testing her. And after like 1.5 years, she finally passed the test. And ever since then, she's just been my greatest source of strength. And what I think helped the most was that the relationship that we built inside of counseling helped me to build similar relationships outside of counseling. I'm a huge advocate for counseling. I think when it's done right, it's absolutely life-changing. So I encourage any student who is struggling to seek that type of help. And for me, I know taking the step to seek help was the hardest part for me because I thought that it was perceived as weakness, that I couldn't fix myself. But what ended up happening is that was actually one of the strongest things I could have done for myself.